Welcome to Table for One. I'm the narrator, and today I'm going to be talking about Spirit Island. This will be the fifth, final, and perhaps most interesting of the 5 spirits that I made for a custom homemade pack that I'm calling Radical Adaptations. So today I'm going to be talking about Reverence for the Gathering. Let's get rolling. Alright, so I am ready to talk a little bit about this last spirit in the Radical Adaptations pack, Reverence for the Gathering. And if, as always, if you're interested in print and playing this spirit for yourself, you can find it for free on my website. That's tablefor1.games, and go to the section under free content where you can find all of the Radical Adaptation spirits. So this one, I had a really hard time with. But I'm really, really happy with how it turned out. So at first, I kept calling it. I played around with a bunch of different names, but I was trying to get at the idea of having a collection of spirits or deities or what have you that were maybe forgotten or replaced with the spirits of Spirit Island today. This is like an older, more ancient group of entities. And so I kept giving different names that had the pantheon in it. I kept thinking of them as the pantheon, like the ancient Greek pantheon of the old Greek gods or Roman gods, something like that. But it very much did not fit in thematically with Spirit Island, because the Greeks and the Romans are not adversaries in this game, but they're sort of on the European continent. So, you can't call the spirit the pantheon. This just doesn't make sense. So I eventually settled on the Gathering, and so the spirit is Reverence for the Gathering, and it's about the Dahan who still believe in the spirits that came before the spirits that we know of today. So, if we take a look at I'll put this up on the screen, the spirit panel on the lore side, it is a high complexity spirit. I'm not going to go into too much detail there. I think that's right. And it's fairly balanced. It's maybe a little bit more offensive and defensive explicitly. It has some utility and then a bit of control and fear. But none of them are super high. They're all pretty level. For setup, let's go to setup next. It says put 2 presents on your starting board, 1 in each land with a single Dahan setup symbol. And then note that you have 5 unique power cards. So, you start in the lands with only 1 Dahan because, the idea is, again, these are sort of the spirits that came before the spirits, and most of the Dahan have moved on, and they're have for several generations, and they're they're more interested in the spirits of Spirit Island that we already know. So these are these smaller isolated communities that kind of still believe in these previous entities. And you start with 5 cards. The reason being, we'll see them later, 1 card relates to each of the summary of powers categories. So there's an offense card, a control card, a fear card, a defense card, and a utility card. So I think that's kind of cool. Looking at the artwork, this was the spirit that I put the most effort into the artwork. The sunburst I made myself, and then there's all these various different colored spirals at the bottom that were supposed to sort of go in rainbow order: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. Didn't completely turn out that way, but on the top half I've got just all these different various spirits that kind of go together, and some of them are animals, and there's trees, and some that are partially human, that may have animal or plant elements woven in. I don't know. I thought it was kind of neat that like all these are all the ancient things that used to be worshipped. So maybe I should take a look at the lore piece itself. Let's go over the actual lore. It is said in the first times, before the first great reckoning, or before even the island itself, there was the gathering, an assemblage of countless divine beings and vital essences. Some say the gathering created the first of the old spirits to watch over their domain when they moved on to other planes, both distant and bizarre. Others say the gathering split themselves into myriad shards which each matured into a spirit of its own. Still others say the gathering never existed at all. They are merely the legends of our forebears. But in some small Dahan communities, the gathering is not forgotten nor renounced, but quietly celebrated and revered for their patience, protection, and esoteric power. So we can probably take a look at the playstyle up front right now too. So it says, slow at the outset with unique abilities that start out expensive and underpowered. During the mid-game, the power level ramps up significantly, though you can expect some tough choices along the way. Overall, fairly balanced, a little challenging, and potentially an endgame dynamo. Okay, so let's flip the spirit panel over, take a look at the play side. And you probably notice a lot of things on here that look a little bit different. So we'll start with the special rules that'll help to explain some of what you're seeing. So the first special rule is called Mysteria Sustain Arcane Powers. Your unique power cards do not count toward your card play's limit. Your unique power cards become more powerful as you uncover Mysteria, and then it's represented by that starburst symbol. This attribute is on your bottom presence track. So a lot to unpack there. We'll come back to the Mysteria a little bit later, but your unique power cards don't count toward your card play limit, which is kind of cool. Mysteria was not my favorite word to use. I really wanted to call it Arcana. Like something arcane. But I know that there's an expansion coming out called Nature Incarnate, and there are Incarna, and I thought that would be kind of confusing, so I had to come up with some other word, and I think Mysteria is okay, but it gets the job done. The other special rule is the gathering demands sacrificial offerings. Each time you forget a unique power card, your innate powers and your remaining unique power cards all permanently gain +1 range. Note the asterisk on the range areas as a reminder. So we'll see that come into play again in a little bit. Let's go to the presence tracks next. That might be a good place to go. So we'll start on the top track, and you can see it's an unusual shape. There are a couple of offshoots off of the top track. So in your first space, you start with 1 energy per turn and 1 card play per turn. So cards and energy are both on the top, similar to Stone's Unyielding Defiance. So the second space moves you up to 2 energy, and then you have an option. You can continue to go straight across and gain 3 energy, and then 4 energy, and then 5 energy and +1 card play. Or from the second energy, you can choose to go down to +1 card play. And you have that same forking option again on the third space with 3 energy. So you can kind of decide after the second and third energy, do you want to go for more energy or get another card play? And you can always go back, on a future turn and make a different decision. None of those paths are ever closed. So that gives you a few different interesting decision points. On the bottom track, you have just the Mysteria symbol. So you start out with 1 Mysteria, and then each next successive space gives you 1 more. So you get up to 2 Mysteria, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Tops out at 6 Mysteria on your presence track. And as a reminder, this makes your unique power cards more powerful. And we'll see that when we look at the cards. If we go to the growth options, there are 5 options to choose from, and you can pick 2. I don't know if there's another spirit off the top of my head that has a growth exactly like this, but it's at least similar to Keeper of the Forbidden Wilds or Sharp Fangs Behind the Leaves. I think they both have 4 options, and you pick 2. So 5 options here, pick 2. And your 5 options are reclaim cards, gain 3 energy, gain a power card, and gain any element. Add add 1 presence at range 2, and finally gain +1 Mysteria. So that would be similar to having like +1 card play, where it's just going to last for this turn. But whatever your uncovered Mysteria is, you get +1 bonus to it. Let's from here switch it over to the power cards. We'll come back to innate powers. There are 5 unique power cards. And as I mentioned, they relate to the summary of powers categories. So the first, why don't I lay them all out first? I'll try and fit all 5 on the screen if I can. You may notice that all of them cost 3 energy, which is fairly expensive. But that's why on your growth option, one of your options is +3 energy, so you can always pay for one of these cards. And the main elements for the spirit are fire, air, water, and earth, although there is some sun, but I used those because they sounded to me like sort of the classical elements. When you think of, things being elemental, you can think about Captain Planet, right? Fire, water, air, earth, and I guess sun is heart. Sorry, kid. But, those are like the basic elements in some sort of fundamental way in the zeitgeist. So I thought it made sense to set up the spirit that way. So let's now individually look at these. So we can start with this first one here, which is the offensive card, and it's called War Drum of Amav. So you'll also see each of these cards is named after some entity of the gathering. So Amav must have been some sort of, war deity or spirit or something. So the War Drum of Amav gives you 1 sun. This is the only card that gives you any sun, and then a fire and a water. It is fast. Range is 0 with an asterisk, and the target land is any. And it says, for each Mysteria, deal 1 damage. So at the start of the game, you have 1 Mysteria uncovered, and you can get +1 through your growth options. But as you uncover those bottom presence tracks, this can get as high as, 6. You have 6 Mysteria on your bottom track and a +1 in your growth. So this could get as high as 7 damage. And so, 7 damage is pretty high. And then it's range 0 with an asterisk. And again, that asterisk is because every time you forget one of your unique power cards, your remaining unique power cards and your innates get +1 range. So you start at 0, but potentially if you forgot the other 4, you can have range 4 and damage of 7, which is super powerful. It would just cause, you'd be required to forget other stuff to do that. So I think those are a couple interesting mechanics that you'll see on all of the unique power cards. So next, let's take a look at the second card. This is the control-related card. It is called Song of Iafa. Again, they all cost 3 energy. This one is slow. It gives you the elements fire, air, water, and earth. And range, as all of these, will be 0 with an asterisk. Target land any, and it says for each Mysteria, gather 1 Dahan or push 1 explorer or town. So again, you can, as you increase in Mysteria, you can gather more Dahan or push more towns and explorers. And it says you may use 1 Mysteria instead to make this power fast. So if you had 3 uncovered, say, rather than say gather 3 to hunt or push 3 explorers or towns, you could gather or push 2 and make it fast. So again, I thought that was kind of neat. The third card is Blood of Zooge, and it is fire and water elements. It's a slow power, range 0, asterisk. Target land has to have invaders for this one. And this says for each Mysteria, generate 1 fear. So pretty straightforward. And that was, that's the fear card, if that wasn't clear. The next one is the defensive card, and this is called Cloth of Daresh. Again, cost is 3. This gives the elements air and earth. It's a fast card, range 0 with an asterisk, target land any, and for each Mysteria, defend 1. So a pretty clear-cut card. There's not a lot to talk about on this one. And if we go to the fifth and final card, this is the utility card. This is the Well of Takemu. Cost is 3. Again, this gives you air and earth elements. This is a slow power, and you target on this one yourself. You target another spirit, so you target yourself. And this says for each Mysteria, so for each one you have, do the following. Within range 0 from a different one of your lands, add 1 beast, wilds, or badlands. So let's unpack that a little bit. So you can only target yourself. You can't target another spirit. And then for each Mysteria, you start from a different one of your lands, and at range 0, you add one of those tokens, and that 0 has an asterisk. So if you forget other cards, you can add tokens at range 1 or range 2 or as much as range 4 from a different one of your lands, adding beasts, wilds, or badlands. So if it weren't for that card, this spirit could be played with the base game. But because it uses tokens and specifically badlands, you would need Jagged Earth to play this spirit. Otherwise, everything else works. So if you just have the base game, and you want to try this spirit out, you can play without that card and still have 4 unique power cards. And I haven't tested it that way, but you could nerf it how you see, or you can bump it how you see fit, by either starting with 1 range on all these, or you can start at 0. I don't know, give it a shot if you want to. But if you have Jagged Earth expansion, you can play it as it is. So if we look at all 5 spirits again, and we have the spirit panel here. We haven't done the innates yet, but you can see the innate on the left uses mostly air and earth, and the innate on the right uses mostly fire and water with a little sun. And the air and earth are both found on these 2 cards, the defensive and the utility. One is fast, one is slow. The fire and water are both found on the offensive and fear cards. Again, one is fast, one is slow. So offense and fear pair together very well. Defense and utility pair together very well. And then all 4 of the elements, fire, air, water, and earth, are on the control card, which is slow but can be made fast. So I just think there's like a very natural balance here between the cards and the innates, and how they all work together. And the challenge is forgetting these cards as you go, to focus your plan. So the spirit is really well equipped and capable of great, of really playing however you need to play that game. It's very flexible. But to hone your skills and to sort of pick one path, you have to, make up your mind to abandon other paths. If you want to be very offensive, you're going to have to abandon some defense probably, and vice versa. So I think that leads to interesting choices. So let's focus now again on the innate powers. So there's 2 of them as usual. We can start on the one on the left. It's called Uncovered Shrines Ward Off Malice. And again, this pairs with the defensive and utility cards pretty nicely, and the control card as well. So this one is fast, range is 0, again with an asterisk. Because your innates are also affected, they will increase range when you forget your unique power cards. And the target land is any. So if you have 1 air and 2 earth, each of your presence in the origin land grants 1 defend in the target land. So that land's going to be the same land if you're at range 0, but say you're at range 1 or 2 or whatever. You can, if you forgot all your uniques, you can be at range 5. So say you're at range 2. If you have a sacred site and you're, range 2, you're targeting from the sacred site. So you have 2 presence there. Whatever the target land is, you defend 1 for each of those presence. So you defend 2 total. The second tier for 2 air and 3 earth is defend +1 in target land for each of your presence in the origin land. So this is basically each presence in the origin land grants you 2 defend in the target land. And then the third tier is 3 air and 4 earth. And this is defend +2. So it's really, you're defending 4 per presence in the origin land. And you're defending obviously in the target land. So it's a little bit to wrap your head around. But it pairs really well with the defense card. So you can defend, if you forget some of your uniques, you can defend very strongly if you've got some Mysteria uncovered, 2 different lands. To a very high degree. If you have a sacred site and you're defending using that third tier, you can defend 8 in whatever land you're targeting, which is pretty substantial. But it should be noted that your total card plays is a max of 4. You get 4 total card plays. Of course, your unique power cards don't count towards that. So you can get your elements. You've got a couple ways to get your elements, and then you've also got that growth option that gives you 1 element of your choice. It's 1 any element, so you've got a few paths to try and unlock that third tier. On the opposite side of the spectrum is a more devastating or more maybe aggressive, or maybe not even aggressive, just more on the offensive side. There's an innate Prying Hands Unleash Havoc. It is speed slow. The range is just like all the others, 0 with an asterisk, and you can target any land. And this says if you have 2 fire and 1 water, 1 damage per current terror level. So as the terror level goes up, this gets more powerful. So at the start of the game, you're at terror level 1, you would do 1 damage. If you're towards the end, you've got terror level 3, this would do 3 damage. If you have 1 sun, 3 fire, and 2 air, +1 damage per current terror level. So that would be 2 damage per terror level. So if you're at terror levels 1, 2, or 3, then the damage you'd be doing is 2, 4, or 6. And I think you see where this is going. The third tier is 2 sun, 4 fire, and 3 water, +1 damage to each invader per current terror level. So this one is each invader, so that's a little different. So with tiers 1 and 2, you've already done 2, 4, or 6 damage. And now, depending on the terror level, if it's 1, 2, or 3, you can do 1, 2, or 3 damage now to each invader, which will really help clear some stuff out. But it's sort of a high elemental threshold to clear with this spirit, at least early on. So I think it rings true that the unique power cards, all starting at cost of 3, range of 0, and doing whatever they do by however many Mysteria you have, which is 1 at the beginning, they're all really expensive, and they don't do much. But as the game goes on, you start forgetting some of these cards, you start uncovering your Mysteria, and the cards you have left are really powerful. But you have to commit to a strategy as you go. So I think this is a super interesting and dynamic spirit that can go a lot of different directions. And it gives you some flexibility to see how the first turn or two play out before you commit to your path. So I don't know. I think it's super cool. I think it's unique, and it's fun to play. It's gonna be different, a little bit different every time you play it. But you've got a lot of options. So I'm pretty pleased with it, and I'm excited to show you a game with it. So same time I release this video, I'm releasing a solo playthrough, which I'm about to play now. So feel free to check that out so you can see this in action. And again, if you go to tablefor1.games, under the free content section, you can download the Spirit, the Spirit panel and the cards, so you can print and play, along with all the other spirits in the Radical Adaptations pack. I recommend printing on matte cardstock. Everything is formatted for 8.5 by 11, and then just cut it out by hand, and it fits. And all this stuff you can see that I have is sleeved. These are just standard card sleeves, and these the Spirit panel is sleeved in a sleeve that I purchased from Greater Than Games, that they sell for their own Spirit panel. So everything is normal sized. So you can check that out if you like. Other than that, I'm anxious to get to this solo game. So if you're still here, feel free to subscribe and leave a like. I would very much appreciate that. And leave some comments. Let me know what you think about this Spirit. I would really love to get some feedback on this and hear what you have to say. Especially if you download it and play it. I would just love to hear that. So let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to go play this game. So I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching Table for One.